Chris, welcome back on the podcast.
Good to be back, Rod.
We're always, time gets away. We're just chatting for 15, 20 minutes off air, as always.
We're talking about bull sharks.
I did the same thing
off
yesterday.
The coast of Sydney.
Yeah, we were talking about bull sharks. They're a bit sort of unnerving at the moment. Anyway, we'll jump straight in so we can keep it short and sweet. I sent you a couple of questions yesterday, and some of these questions, Chris, often come from my own thoughts around my own training. And, you know, both of us have been in this industry for a long time, and sometimes you need other people to bounce your own ideas or your own self off, right? You know, it's hard to self-coach. The things I would tell my athletes and the things I tell myself are often very different. This first question, which I'll read in a moment, I'm going through this at the moment. I'm trying to find the optimum for where I'm at in life right now, training program. So my first question is, are we training too much after 50? I'll get your thoughts on that, and then I've always got a few things to add there as well. Yeah. What do you think?
I'll tell you my personal view on it, and then my experience with clients. I've always trained, so I've never been someone who has tracked my training that much. You know, I design a plan that if I'm running, you know, training for an ultra, I will say, right, I'm 5 months out. This is how I want to slowly build it up with long runs and so forth. But when it comes to just training to stay fit and healthy, I kind of just go by how I feel on the day and what I feel like doing on that day. But I always will do something. It's not a day goes by where I'm not being active and doing some exercise. But I don't have a strict plan of this is what I need to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Saying that, I am trying out a 12-week over summer experiment where I'm just doing 30 minutes of strength training every day or 6 days a week with one long distance run in the weekend to see what results I can get after 12 weeks of just doing half an hour every day. There's not any specific exercises I'm doing. I just, for half an hour, let's do some strength training. And I just go around a number of exercises and lift weights and stuff like that. To see after 12 weeks, if you can commit to 30 minutes a day, what can you achieve in 12 weeks in your 50s. So that's probably how much structure I give to it, and therefore not quite sure if I'm training too much or too little. That's me, because I kind of see this as a thing for the rest of my life, so I'm not going to get too hung up on training volumes and intensities and heart rates and stuff like that. As long as I train, as long as I challenge myself, I'm happy with that. And from time to time, if I'm feeling a bit like haven't got the energy, things are just off, I might just take a week off training. My body's telling me I need a rest, so I'll just have a week off. And I usually kind of time it with when I go away. So in a couple of weeks' time, we go away for 10 days. So I know I just train up to that day, and then I'm away. And then I won't train for that while I'm away, and then I come back and get back onto it. That's kind of how I do it myself. For clients, it depends where they are in their kind of fitness journey. So if I get people who have just been away from fitness training for a while, I'll just get them just being consistent and frequent with the workout. So the first thing I hit on is just frequency. Let's just get you exercising every day. Don't care what you're doing, how hard you're doing it, don't care. Just get into that mindset and that habit of exercising every day. And when we've got that, we can start looking at duration and intensity. If we can push it, incorporate rest and recovery. But if they haven't got the frequency yet, then I don't really mind them training every day because they're not really going to push themselves too hard. Where I got some clients who've been training for many years, they're exercise you could call junkies, and they're the ones I need to keep more an eye on because they just want to keep going. And I actually have to say, I think you need a week off. Okay, still, if you want to exercise, do something really light, but you need a week off from this level of intensity and just back off. So it's probably not a case of an age thing. It's more someone's exercise history, where they are in their fitness journey, will kind of determine if they're training too much. Because the reality is most people aren't training enough. And it's nice to get someone, sometimes you go, hey, let's just ease off for a week. And a lot of that is down to education, educating them on, we all know we get benefits from recovery, not free training. So if you're not allowing the body to recover properly, then all your training is not going to deliver what you want anyway. Are you just training for the sake of training, or you're training because you want certain outcome? And if it's for a certain outcome, then rest and recovery is the most important part of it. I used to, when I first, 30 odd years ago, I set up programs for clients that are periodization programs, right? For the first 4 weeks, the first microcycle 1 week, and then we got a mesocycle, and then we got a macrocycle. And I used to plan out like 12 months of training and stuff like that with, every 4 to 6 weeks of training, and then we have a week off, and then we go into another microcycle and a mesocycle and so forth from there. And then I found people's lives got in the way. Like they got sick, or they got a work commitment that they can't get out of, or they go on holiday all of a sudden. And it's like, oh, well, that's just messed up my periodization program. So I usually find people, even it's not planned, people will have breaks in their training just because of life gets in the way. So when you try to plan it out, right, we're going to do 6 weeks of training, 1 week off, 6 weeks of training, 1 week off. And, it never really works out. Now, when you get an athlete who's training for a competition, then they're a lot easier to periodize the training for. But I think for the general public, they're going to have a break sometime down the road unexpectedly. So if you try to plan that in, good luck. It usually comes unstuck pretty quickly. So as a coach, you've got to run, with people. And if they're about to going to have a 2-week holiday, but they've trained already 6 weeks in a row, maybe just give them one more week, 7 weeks in a row, instead of having a rest and then they go on holiday. So it's, well laid plans and all that. So I don't know if I'll answer the question, but I think, are we training too much after 50? I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's more, people, how they're living their lives and where they are on their fitness journey, really, on that. Why, do you think you're training too much, Rod?
I'm trying to figure that out at the moment, to be honest with you. And yeah, it's an interesting one, and I totally concur with what you're saying. For the majority of people, it's probably they're not doing enough, and life does get in the way. And a couple of your points you made there about proper cycles or periodization cycles. I lived in that space as well with track running. Under my coach, he didn't run those type of programs because he was on your sort of thought there, where life gets in the way. And even though we were masters athletes, but we trained at, I would say, an elite level. All of us were elite masters athletes per se. He would just say that, you won't come to training for a day here and a day there, or you'll have a week off or whatever. So he didn't actually program that way. When I started to coach my athletes at a pretty serious level, I had a very, small group of guys. I did, and I trained myself that way. And one of the reasons was, when you're training at that level, was the mental break that you look forward to. You're training so hard, but all of a sudden you've got a deload week coming up or a complete rest week. There was this mental relief as well when you're going on these long 12-month sort of, to a big event, particularly for the Olympic athlete I was coaching. That was big ticket. He was getting close to burnout quite regularly in training. He wanted to train all the time. But just to go back to one thing you said earlier was you're running your own 12-week program at the moment to see how are you going to measure that overall, though. You say that you want to see what the outcome will be, but how will you actually just measure that on a personal level? Yeah,
not through metrics, more with how I feel, how I look, what other people think. The experiment is to hopefully show people that just a daily commitment of only 30 minutes can produce this result. Now, I'm starting from a level, much higher level than most people would be starting from, but it's more to get people to understand that you don't have to have too much structure and precision to get results at this age. So, a lot of people go into split routines. I'll do legs on Monday, back on Wednesday, chest on Friday, and all that. That usually comes unstuck because people suddenly can't keep to a Friday. So then the training gets pushed back and things like that. Well, if you go into it and thinking, look, I just need to do something every day. Lift weights, do some sort of strength training every day. That's going to be, you probably will achieve a much higher volume of training than trying to do it as a split routine, for example. Because
Yeah.
if you're doing every 6 days out of 7 and you just happen to miss a day, it's okay, because the volume in that week's still going to be high anyway.
Yeah,
Where if you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you go, right, rest on Tuesday, rest on Thursday, and then something happens on Friday. You go, can't train today. I have to wait till Monday now. And now you've got a 5-day, rest. Where if you just always look at doing something every day. So I'm not measuring it metric wise, even though I am, for the first time for a long time, I'm logging my reps and sets and weights so I can see the volume. I use a training app called Train Heroic, which I found is the easiest, simplest kind of app for people to use to log workouts. That's what I give my clients. Don't overcomplicate it. So I just, at the end of each workout, I just log it, and then I can see my volume over a period of time. So one thing though to mention about are we training too much or too little is now modern technology is so different from when we started. Because I wear a Whoop band, people have health trackers and stuff like that, and you get a much clearer picture about how your body is coping. There was when I first got wore a Whoop back in 2018, I kind of just carried on training the way I wanted to train. And after about 6 months of wearing a Whoop and not really listening to the data, taking note of the data, I thought, why am I paying this monthly when I'm not even listening to it? So I either listen to it or I get rid of it. So I thought, right, for the next 6 months, I'm going to listen to it. And I'm going to train when in the green, when I'm even in the red, I'm going to not train or whatever. And actually that really helped my train. I felt I got stronger and fitter by listening to my body via the Whoop, and training when really pushing it when it said I was well recovered, and then easing off when it said I was needed more recovery. So instead of saying my program is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, run on Saturday, whatever, I'd wake up every morning not knowing what I'm going to do that day until Whoop told me what my body was doing, and that would tell me what sort of training I was going to do that day. And for 6 months I found it really worked, and I found that I was training more, I was training harder, smarter, and I got better results. So,
interesting. So
if you've got the technology, then use it. Don't ignore it. Use it, or otherwise get rid of it.
I'm two schools of thought on technology. I just wear a Garmin watch, but I don't use it to guide my training. I use it more to, particularly if I'm running. When I was training for high rocks, I specifically only use it for running. I look at my sleep data just to see where I'm at occasionally, but the rest of the data I don't get too bogged down on. I do have a fairly structured training program, but I'm so used to it. I am finding, going back to the question, I'm probably potentially overtraining. I don't feel overtrained. Like when I was sprinting, when you're overtrained. Like you are just clawing your way through to a deload week. Your body's just fried. So I don't think, unfortunately, because in our stage of our journey, I find it difficult to put on muscle. Obviously, that starts to diminish as we age. Secondly, my body's so well trained. The stimulus doesn't have the effect that it used to when I was, 20 and just starting out. So that's very different. And that's what you were saying before. And I like that approach. Someone new in the training space could go into the gym and do anything and they'll get good stimulus and get an outcome. I think the only downside is someone not having a structured program if they're quite new. I'm thinking about friends. I get calls from friends all the time about, what should I do here? They don't probably have an array of exercises in their mind that you and I have, that we could walk in the gym and just, even if we've got a set program, we could modify it that day with 10 different machines and still get the same outcome. A lot of people need that structure because they can't, I don't know what to do if the tricep press down machine is actually not available. What do I do? So I think for a lot of people, they probably need that structure as well.
Yeah, and I agree. And with my clients, I do give them that structure. I'm just saying for myself, I know kind of the answers to all those questions. So I can get away with a lot less structure than most people because I know I'm going to push myself. I know what I can do on a certain day, so I'm a bit more relaxed about it. But definitely for a client. And a lot of the time, most people, even though they might not need that much structure, they feel good if they do have that structure. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. They feel more confident in what they're doing if there's some structure to it. And I have some clients who just love numbers. They just love looking at the data. So I just give them a lot of data.
Yes.
And they love
the one thing I would suggest to a lot of people out there, if you're just getting started, and you are, we talk predominantly in your 50s, and you don't have a lot of gym knowledge, spend some time, and this is where I do believe using a trainer for a period of time will really help people. So you start to understand there is 2 or 3 different exercises I can do for the same muscle group or this to get the same outcome. So if you're going into the gym, and I hear a lot of people say gyms are becoming very busy at the moment, particularly, commercial gyms. And I do hear people saying they go in there, they have to wait so long for a piece of equipment because they don't understand you can just jump to something else. They've been given this program. They think you have to follow every exercise in a particular sequence. Yes. And I would like to see people get to the point where they've got a bit of knowledge, they've got, certain exercise on their program today, and they can just swap and change those exercises. It's not going to matter too much at our age. Yeah. You're not training for something specific, it's not going to matter. So I think having a coach that actually can show you an array of exercises that you can just walk into the gym and feel comfortable. I can't do lat pull downs today, but I can just go and exchange this for, a dumbbell row, and it's still a back exercise and I'm still going to get some benefit out of it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, on that, Rod, I have a kind of a workout of the day. I give my clients workout videos, and one is workout of the day, one's workout of the week. The workout of the week is more gym-based, equipment-based workout that you can repeat over a whole week. Where workout of the day, it's non-equipment body weight exercises. It's along the lines of like AMRAPs and EMOMs and interval training. And I always say to my clients, don't worry about the exercises that I've recommended. Look at the protocol of the workout. So if it's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and it's for 12 minutes and just repeat, then you choose the 5 exercises you want. Now, I've got some ideas for you. And I would recommend doing those, but if you don't want to do them, fine. But as long as you keep to the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, for 12 minutes, that's what's going to get you the results that you're looking for, getting fitter and stronger and so forth. So, because if I just gave them a workout saying, all right, I want 12-minute AMRAP, 5 exercises, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and they go, oh, cool. What exercise should I do? Whatever exercise you want to do. Well, you tell me what I should be doing. I say, do these exercises. And then they go, I don't like that exercise. Well, what exercise do you like then? I like this exercise. We'll put that in then. Sometimes you need to hold their hand and just say, don't overthink it. As long as you're doing the protocol of the workout and it's challenging you, then play with it. Change it around and see what comes of it. So, yeah.
That's hard for a lot of people if they don't have, the years of experience and can look at any piece of equipment and just make it up in their head. But
that's why they pay me, Rod.
The next one I wrote here, and this is an interesting one for me, the exercises you've changed your mind about over the years. What sort of 3 exercises did you do 20 years ago that you may not do now?
Bicep curls and tricep dips. I just don't do them anymore. Because I'm not that vain about my arms. My girlfriend tells me it's all about personality, not what your arms look like. So I think both would probably be beneficial. But because I do a lot of lifting anyway, I'm quite happy with the strength I have in my arms from the lifting I do without adding the arm exercises to it. And I just find them overall a little bit, whatever. And you can increase the amount you're lifting through bicep curls and tricep dips or pull downs or whatever, but the actual increase is quite small after a while. You can't really go too much. So that's probably, I don't worry about the small muscles anymore. I just train the big muscles in a way that the small muscles get trained anyway. So I don't do a lot of isolation work. I do a lot of high compound exercises. So I'm hitting a lot of things at once, and therefore my arms kind of take care of themselves. The question is, could I have better looking arms, bigger arms? Yeah, probably, but not that much more, I don't think. And someone who runs a lot, my legs are my strength. That's really my strong point. Having stronger arms is good, but it's not really what I aim for. So I've kind of got rid of those small muscle exercises like for the arms and so forth. I don't do a lot of leg strength work anymore. I just do a lot of running, and at 56, my legs are pretty strong and in pretty good shape without doing any lifting. And I found in the past when I did leg work, I suffered on my long runs. My legs just became heavy, and I was just like, and for the extra gain I'd get I didn't see it was worth the time and effort for them. Now, touch wood, I've never, I can run up 100 miles and never been injured. Haven't had an injury. I've had aches and pains, had niggles, but I've never had an injury where it stopped me for a period of time. Just my legs are they just, keep ticking over. And I just think, well, should I do leg work? Because they say building up your leg strength out of season will help in season. I think, I just don't bother, and I just run. And running up hills and down hills is enough for me. So that's probably what I've kind of changed my mind about. That I'm old enough and trained for many years now to know how my body responds now, and I just don't need those arm exercises or leg exercises anymore. So, that's probably the biggest change.
Yeah, I think, and just for people listening that may not fully understand that the premise of the compound exercise, obviously movements, that are bigger movements that bring in other muscle groups into that one movement, as opposed to and you talk about weightlifters or powerlifters, they're just doing those big compound movements, but they will do some assistance training. They will do the occasional, shoulder work or back work to some of those smaller muscle groups to actually create that assistance in those bigger muscles. I suppose the three big exercises for me that I still do them, one of them, but I'll sort of explain my change of theory on them, but it's probably a deadlift, a back squat, and a bench press. A barbell bench press. My favourite exercise probably has always been, I've never been a fan of deadlifting, even from a very young age. I think it was two things. I was never great at it compared to my strength in other exercises, but it's always been, being involved in sport was always that power movement that everyone said you had to do. I don't believe, from a limb length point of view, my body's very suited to it. Just from I can't get in a very good setup position. However, I've always been able to squat relatively well, and I've been extremely strong for my size at bench pressing. However, over the years, my shoulder just did not like, and now does not like, bench press at all. Right. So I've completely changed and stopped bench pressing purely for that reason. Not that I don't like the exercise, but I just won't do it because of the potential risk to my shoulder and also post-shoulder surgery. But again, there's lots of substitutes. I still can do an upright or seated bench press, and quite heavy, no impact. It's just that laying position, and they often, talk about that. It doesn't let your scapulas rotate in, and you obviously, come really forward with your shoulders trying to push really heavy weight. And I think the back squat for a lot of people over 50, it's just an exercise you don't need to learn. It's very, very complex. People don't realise the complexities of a back squat. Yeah, I think it's a great exercise, but the risk reward for our age bracket is probably just not there for me anymore.
Yeah, I suppose with the back squat, it's how hard you do it. The load you use. I always have all my female clients, male clients, always doing back squat, but more for the movement, the loaded movement, than how much they can back squat. It's just a good way of loading someone up. It is very technical. You've got to make sure your posture's right. If you've got poor posture, it's really hard to do a good back squat. But on the flip side, getting people to do a back squat, you can see they become more confident. They go, they see it as a big strength exercise, so they quite please themselves they can do it. Even though the form isn't perfect, I will look at their form and decide then what load they can handle on that, more than trying to get them perfectly squatting. So I find that a back squat is more than just a strength exercise. It's one that helps people with their posture. You can see, especially female clients, their confidence really increases when they do it and so forth. But I never push people to a 1 rep max or even a 3 rep max. It's always working at probably 80% of their max, and they don't get injured from it. They're not going to be great back squatters, and they're not going to break any records, but I think it's a good exercise to load people. And with the bench press, again, especially female clients, if I get them bench pressing, it just, you can see them becoming a lot more confident and like, is this a good weight? I go, yes, it's good. It's a really good weight. So there's more to it in the exercise, but Yeah. Are you still feeling you're just as strong by cutting these exercises out, and you're finding a different way of
And
gaining
just to clarify there, I haven't cut them out. I don't bench press at all with a flat bar anymore. And if I do occasionally jump on there if it's sort of free. I just don't try and push heavy weight at all. I still back squat. I just love squatting. I think I'm more thinking about if someone came to me now in their 50s and said, when I was designing a program for them, I wouldn't put a back squat in there initially. If I knew posturally and they had the mobility in their ankles and their hips and they'd done the work, maybe with kettlebell front squats and so forth to get that that sort of postural stance and that strength of their posterior chain, I would introduce a back squat. It just takes some learning, and I have just changed my mind I used to think it was like the be all and end all. You had to be able to back squat to get stronger. I'm just saying that's some of the areas I've changed my mind on. And I grew up in that era where, particularly in track, back squatting was such a big part of our program. But I still do squat. Am I as strong as I used to be, Chris? No. And my restriction now, my limitations in my back squat, I have no leg limitations. I could probably still get back to squatting some decent weights. It's my lower back I have limitations in. And that's where I've become more cautious. I had this mental thing when I was early 50s. I'm mid to late at the moment. I wanted to double body weight back squat in my 50s. I'm 82 kilos normally. I had to get to a 160. I sort of set myself a 160. I was 52 or 53. I think I got to 156 or 157 again. I was going pretty well then. Could I do that now? No way in the world. My lower back just would say, no, you can't do that. So it's just training. It's not about the exercise. I've completely changed my mind on because I still think they're great exercises. It's just training smarter as I've got older and finding substitutes where I can get what I'm trying to achieve out of my training program without using exercises that are going to potentially injure me and send me backwards.
Yeah. I for a number of years ago now, I just trained 6 months of back squat. I wanted to see how much I could back squat. And I did a 220 one rep. And after I'd done that, I thought, fine. I know what I can. I couldn't do that now. And there was a period where once a year, or throughout a 12-month period, I wanted to be able to run 100 Ks race, back squat 100 kgs, and bench press 100 kgs. And so that would be my target over a 12-month period. Now, I'm still doing that with the running and the bench press, but I just haven't kept up the back squat. So I just found that there's quite good synergy, all three 100 on that. So, so maybe just people out there, just set yourself those targets to say, right, in a 12-month period, these are the targets I want to hit. And each year, use that as a benchmark to see if you'll be able to sustain your strength or how much it drops off from there.
Yeah, a lot of it is around what we're trying to achieve as individuals. And I think if you've been training for a long time, and I definitely know that ego gets in the way of some things. You still want to be able to do things that you used to be able to do. It's the diminishing aspect of certain training. Is hard to.
Yeah. On the ego side, because I can see what the next question is, what you wish you knew about fitness at 40. And a big thing of that is ego. I so much more enjoy my training the older I've got than when I was younger. Because there was, as a PT working in gyms, every time you went out and trained, people would watch. Oh, what's the PT doing? Things like that. And you'd always have that in the back of your mind. I've got to always be on it and performing and, not struggling. Because a lot of people think, well, if you're fit, you don't struggle. And it's kind of like, no, if you want to be fit, you have to struggle. Struggle is part of getting fit. But you didn't want to show that you're struggling. So therefore, there's always that kind of in the back of your mind, not necessarily ego, because I wasn't trying to prove anything. It was just you're on show all the time. And since I've got my own facility, 12 years now, it's completely gone. It's just like, I can just train now and not worry about how I'm training in front of people. So as I've got older, gone into my 50s, it's just about now enjoying training, just enjoying the movement and just challenging yourself. Which when I was younger, that it was more than that. It was always about performing and looking the part and stuff. So that's what I wish I knew back at 40 is like, don't worry about it, just train. Don't worry about what other people think and so forth. And another thing is I've really enjoyed in the last 10, 12 years Just the endurance stuff. I just love going out now and seeing how far I can go and how far I can push myself. Not to beat anyone or beat any records, just how, I went out for a 4-hour run on Saturday, and that felt just as hard as when I did my 16-hour run a month ago. It just, on the day, it just felt heavy and things like that. But it just felt good to be challenge myself and not worrying about not always being on your game at your best, and waiting for the best opportunity to go and challenge yourself. It's just go out, just see what happens, and be happy with what you've been able to do on that day. And that's really made me love exercise and training much more than what I used to when I was younger. I suppose it just goes with getting older. You don't really care anymore. No, not care anymore.
And
you
I
just
think
don't care as much. You don't care as much.
Well,
because,
you don't care about what people think or say.
Yes,
Or less, for sure. No, I totally agree. Quick segue there. We know that you, because I need to wrap up in a few minutes to get my day organised, but we know that you ran your race the other week. Let's just talk a little bit about that and how you went.
Yeah, so as a recap...
And a bit of background there for people that don't know, that you obviously run ultras and you were training for some time for that event.
Yeah, so the last 3 years, my goal has been try to run 100 miles under 24 hours. For 2 years, I ran 100 miles, but I didn't get under 24 hours. And then last year, I tried to do it under 24 hours and got to 85 miles before I blew up. So this year, I decided to do this event called a Backyard Ultra, which means you run a 4.1 mile loop every hour on the hour. And the competition is basically the last person standing, the last person who can get around the 4.1 miles in an hour, they win. And I wasn't doing it for that reason. I was using it to see if I can do 100 miles in 24 hours. So we started off at midday on a Saturday. The winner eventually won on Tuesday morning. They went for 65 hours, which is surreal. And I got to 16 hours, 16 laps. So what was that, 4 o'clock in the morning? Here in the UK, the sun was just coming up, daybreak, and my digestive system gave out on me. I couldn't. It said that ultra marathon running is basically an eating competition. The person who can keep eating for the longest, or can keep going for the longest. And some days the longest I've gone is 32 hours. Where on this event I did 16 hours. And if I had a longer rest and let my digestive system settle down, I could have kept going. But because you have to keep going on the hour every hour, I was going around an hour and 49 minutes for the first 12, 13 hours. And then the only thing I ate in probably about 3 hours was 2 Jaffa cakes and half a banana, because that's all I could stomach. And then each lap just got slower, down to 54 minutes per lap, and then it got to 57, and then I couldn't get around the 16th lap in time to do it. So that was my race run. So it wasn't as far as I wanted, and I know I can go further than that, but it is just what it is on the day. And but what I took from the event, and always from these sort of events, is I get to spend a period of time with like-minded people. Everyone's there because they've chosen to be there, and everyone is going to go through a level of discomfort on purpose. And I really like being around people like that, because you all got the same goal. It was amazing, Rod, because this event here in the UK, it's on quite a reasonably flat circuit. And it's where the UK record is, which is 85. I think the record is 85 hours. And you got some of the best. We had overseas athletes coming in to do it, from Spain, from Colombia, from Japan, because they want it because it was a flat course. Other national records have been broken on this course. So it was some good elite athletes there. But out of the 350 people, you could not spot who they were. They didn't act like elites. They didn't talk like elites. I was running with this guy for 2 laps, guy from Belgium. I thought he was struggling. I was like helping along, going, you all right, mate? And he goes, oh yeah, I'm good. He won it the year before. and went on for he went on for 50 hours. And there's me going, oh, you're right, mate. Keep going, trying to, give him some confidence. But these people were you just couldn't pick out who the elites were. They were so talking to people. It was just such a good environment that I'm not that bummed out by not going further, because I just enjoyed the experience. It was just lovely people who were we're all in it together. Let's do it. No one was being, I can't talk to you because I'm, so focused and I want to win this and stuff like that. It was just a lovely experience, and I had, a good 24 hours in a small little world that was very, very different from the rest of the world, because you don't really meet too many people in life who just want to put themselves through a bit of discomfort for a long period of time. So I really loved it. And all the training I did leading up to it is really was the goal. I got myself back into really good shape and so forth. So the event itself was just, the end more than the goal. The goal was to challenge myself, do the training, put the time in over 5 months, and then see what would happen. Saying that, and I thought, that's it, I can't do 100 miles under 24 hours. It's not for me. I can't get there. And then I went out for a run a couple of weeks ago, went through this vineyard. It was having this running festival on. I said, what's going on here? It's a 30-hour event, and you just see how many miles, how far you can go in 30 hours. And it's just a mile circuit, flat around this vineyard, 10-minute drive from home. So my brain was going, okay. Well, that sounds okay. And it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of midday where they mostly start. I can get up at 7, get in the car, drive over here and start running at 8. And then Erica is only 10 minutes away, so she doesn't have to stay overnight in a van. She can just pop back and forth with refreshments and stuff like that. And I'll just keep going. I was like, so 2 weeks earlier, I was thinking, that's it. No 100 mile in 24 hours. 2 weeks later, I was like, okay, that's a possibility. From saying I'm not going to do this again to now, all right, let's give it one more shot, and I'll be 57 instead of 56 to go and do it. Yeah. And I'll just go and give it another go. So maybe I'm addicted to it. I don't know.
I've heard a lot about. Well, first of all, congratulations! A massive effort. Running for 16 hours for anybody is just incredible. I've said this before, and I'm a better endurance athlete when I was younger. My body's definitely naturally more towards the fast twitch side of things. I've been doing some good interval running on the treadmill at the moment. Tendon-wise, my body just doesn't cope for, at the moment, longer extended events. I keep getting a few tendon-type overuse injuries. And I do think that's a lot of people just genetically predisposed for those type of things, because I've never been one to go out and just want to run. But secondly, going back to your point about the eating part, I think these longer events are just an eating competition. And it's now been proven, the guy that came out and his first attempt, the Leadville 100, that he won it and broke the record. And his wife is a doctor, and they just went through this process of, he just worked out how many calories and how much carbohydrate he could consume on an hourly basis, and it was like 3 times more than anyone else were trying to do during the event. And some of the stuff that he ingested during that race was just absurd. He just trained his gut. He said he was literally going out and running for 4 or 5 hours at a time and just literally force feeding himself to train his gut to actually cope with it.
There's something in that. I need to train my gut better, and so I'm looking at more natural foods. So I use a lot of gels and so forth, but I'm looking at doing more, see if I can run long distance of just natural foods. Foods. No gels or electrolytes or things like that. I just got to find a way for my gut to stay settled for longer, and so I'm going to try the natural route and just see if I have enough energy then to keep going, because it will be a trade-off between the gut being able to get the food in, but the right food that will give you the energy. I think the big difference is starting earlier in the day and not waiting to midday to start. And most of these sort of 24-hour races, they start at midday, and then you've already been up for 4 or 5 hours, and I just want to get up, have something to eat, start running.
So it's more of your natural routine as well.
But I'll put myself through it again. Another English winter out for long runs.
Chris, we will leave it there. I'm trying to actually be pretty concise in 30 minutes. We've run a bit over. All good to chat as always.
Well, I hope people enjoy it. That's the main
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And let's lock in a time for next month. And until then, have a great day.
Thanks, Rod.
Bye for now.